On June 10, 2026, Honda issued a voluntary safety recall covering 880,514 vehicles under NHTSA campaign number 26V367000. The reason filed with the federal government, a factory coating defect on the rear subframe, is allowing road salt to corrode the suspension mounting points until they fracture and fail. Progressive structural failure. No warning light. No noise the day before. Just a sudden, violent loss of rear-wheel control at whatever speed the driver happens to be doing when the metal finally lets go. This is a complete engineering breakdown of what happened, why it is happening in specific states and not others, what it looks like under the truck before it fails, and what the timeline between Honda first identifying this problem and Honda finally mailing recall letters actually reveals about how manufacturers treat safety defects. Part 1. The defect. What broke and what the paperwork says. The recall covers 4 specific platforms sharing the same rear subframe architecture. The 2017 through 2023 Honda Ridgeline, the 2016 through 2022 Honda Pilot, the 2019 through 2023 Honda Passport, and the 2014 through 2020 Acura MDX. The Ridgeline is the pickup truck in this group. It accounts for approximately 110,000 of the 880,514 recalled vehicles. The rest are SUVs that share the same rear subframe design. The reason all 4 were swept into one recall is that they share the same engineering and the same factory shortcut that made the defect possible. Honda-owned language filed with NHTSA describes the root cause as improper coating specifications applied to the rear subframe during manufacturing. In plain engineering terms, the protective coating applied over the bare steel at the arm bracket weld area on the rear subframe was too thin and failed to adhere properly. Once that coating peels away, the bare steel underneath is exposed at the exact load-bearing point where the rear control arm bolts to the subframe. That is not a body panel. That is not a bracket on an accessory mount. That is the structural joint that keeps the rear wheels attached to the vehicle. NHTSA's own description of the consequence is direct as the corrosion progresses. Material thinning and driving vibrations could cause the mounting area to fracture and fail. When it does, failure of the rear control arm or lower arm attachment points can cause the wheel to become misaligned or inadequately retained, causing a loss of vehicle handling and control that significantly increases the risk of a crash. Honda estimates that approximately 1% of recalled vehicles currently contain the active defect. 1% of 880,514 vehicles is approximately 8,800 vehicles. 8,800 trucks and SUVs on public roads right now, with a structural suspension mounting point being consumed from the inside out. As of late May 2026, Honda reports no injuries and no deaths. That number reflects the current state of the data. It does not reflect the state of the subframe on those 8,800 vehicles. The fix is free. Honda dealers will inspect the rear subframe and install a reinforcement kit built with improved pre-paint treatment and increased coating thickness. If the damage is severe, the subframe components will be repaired or replaced entirely. That language in the remedy documentation, improved pre-paint treatment and increased coating thickness, is Honda confirming in writing that the original coating specification was never adequate for the operating environment these vehicles were sold into. Part 2. The salt belt. Why the coating failure becomes a structural failure. The recall applies specifically to vehicles sold in 23 states plus Washington, D.C. Connecticut, Delaware, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and the District of Columbia. every state in the Northeastern Corridor and the Upper Midwest, every state where road de-icing operations run from November through April. NHTSA confirmed directly that there are no reports of this failure on vehicles operated outside these Salt Belt regions. The coating defect is necessary but not sufficient. The road salt is the accelerant. Sodium chloride and calcium chloride, the primary compounds in road de-icers, function as electrolytes when dissolved in water. Salt does not just allow steel to rust. It accelerates the oxidation reaction at a rate that makes normal oxidation look slow. Stack the freeze-thaw cycle on top of that chemistry. Water infiltrates a microscopic crack in the peeling coating. It freezes, expands, and forces the crack wider. It thaws, and now more bare steel is exposed for the next cycle. Every winter in Michigan or Ohio or Massachusetts, that crack gets larger and that steel gets thinner. The salt trapped in road grime against the subframe does not dry out between events. It holds moisture against the metal continuously. The federal government estimates road salt causes approximately $5 billion in annual damage to vehicles and infrastructure. That is the environment working against every vehicle with a compromised coating at a load-bearing joint. The most important distinction to understand before looking at your own vehicle is the difference between surface rust and structural rot. Surface rust is the orange tint on every bolt and bracket under every truck in America that sees winter roads. It sits on the outside of the metal. It does not reduce the load-bearing capacity of the component. It is normal and universal. Structural rot eats through the cross-section of the metal. It reduces the wall thickness below the threshold required to carry its design load. And because this specific coating failure occurs inside the weld joint of the mounting bracket, the corrosion works from the interior of the joint outward. By the time visible rust appears on the outside of that mounting point, the interior may already be critically compromised. The visual inspection tells you what the surface looks like. It does not tell you what is left of the metal inside the joint. The warning arrives after the danger does. Part 3. The failure sequence. What happens mechanically when the mounting point lets go? The coating peels at the arm bracket weld zone. Bare steel is exposed. Corrosion accelerates under salt and freeze-thaw cycling. The metal thins at the rear control arm attachment point. Every road input, every pothole, every loaded mile applies a stress cycle to the thinning metal. Eventually, the mounting point fractures. The control arm separates from its subframe anchor. The rear wheel is no longer positively located by the suspension geometry. The official NHTSA language is loss of vehicle handling and control. In operational terms, this is a sudden lateral displacement of the rear axle at whatever speed the vehicle is traveling. No preceding warning code on the instrument cluster. No degraded handling symptom that builds over days. Honda reports 0 injuries and 0 deaths as of May 28, 2026. That is accurate and should be stated plainly. But a defect that has produced no fatalities until the day it produces the first fatality is not evidence that the risk is theoretical. It is evidence that the timing has not yet aligned between the subset of 8,800 compromised vehicles and the circumstances that produce a catastrophic outcome. The responsible action is not to wait for that alignment. It is to inspect the subframe before it happens. The physical warning signs documented by Honda are abnormal noise or vibration from the rear of the vehicle, changes in handling including wandering, shimmy, or drift, and any change in how the vehicle tracks at highway speed, given the internal nature of the corrosion mechanism. Visual and physical symptoms at the exterior of the joint may lag behind actual structural degradation inside it. Do not rely solely on symptomatic detection. Part 4. The timeline. What Honda knew and when they chose not to act. December 2021. Honda internally identified a paint quality discrepancy between supplier lab testing and real-world vehicle outcomes. That is the date Honda first had documented knowledge that the coating on these subframes was not performing as specified. 2022 and into early 2023, Honda surveyed vehicles across the United States and Canada. In August 2022, the supplier improved its pre-paint treatment process. In January 2023, the supplier increased the coating thickness on new production. Both corrections applied only to vehicles built going forward. Neither addressed the hundreds of thousands of vehicles already on the road with the original insufficient coating. September 2023. Honda formally evaluated the survey data and concluded there was no unexpected corrosion progression. Honda decided not to issue a recall. June 10, 2026. Honda reversed that determination and issued the recall. The gap between Honda first documenting the coating defect in December 2021 and the mailing of owner notification letters on July 7, 2026 is 4 years and 7 months. During those 4 years and 7 months, the recalled vehicles continued operating in Salt Belt states. The coating that the supplier had already corrected on the production line continued to degrade on the vehicles already sold. TfL Car confirmed the historical pattern directly. First generation 2003 through 2008 Pilot SUVs were notorious for rusting issues around the rear subframe. In June 2022, Honda recalled 112,060 Ridgelines from model years 2006 through 2014 under INEXA campaign 22V430 for rear frame corrosion near the fuel tank. In June 2025, Honda recalled additional vehicles under NHTSA 25V422 for drive shaft corrosion from a lubricant degrading the protective coating in Salt Belt states. Same platform family, same geographic exposure, same category of factory material specification failure. 3 separate recall events across more than a decade. Part 5. What to do now? Owner notification letters mailed July 7, 2026. Do not wait for the letter. Check your VIN at recalls.honda.com or the NHTSA website. Search for campaign 26 V367000. Honda recall numbers for this campaign are AL and AOT. Honda Customer Service 1-888-234-2138. Inspect the rear subframe before the dealer appointment. With a flashlight under the rear of the truck, locate the rear subframe crossmember and specifically the weld areas where the rear control arms attach. Those arm bracket weld zones are where the coating failure occurs. Surface rust, the uniform orange tint on unpainted metal, is normal on any Salt Belt vehicle and does not indicate this defect. What to look for is specific. Peeling or flaking paint at the weld bracket zones. Raised, scaling rust concentrated at the control arm bolt locations. And the definitive test, probe those weld areas with a screwdriver. Sound metal gives firm resistance. Metal consumed by structural rot gives way under light pressure, crumbles, or accepts the screwdriver without resistance. If you find that result, do not drive the vehicle to the dealer. Contact Honda at 1-888-234-2138 and describe the finding before driving. If your vehicle shows no active structural corrosion at those points. Schedule the reinforcement kit installation before the July 7 letter triggers the appointment queue at every Honda dealer in 23 states simultaneously. The repair is free. Schedule it now. A factory coating specification failure at a structural weld joint is not detectable by standard pre-purchase inspection. It develops invisibly inside the weld joint until the interior damage is already critical. The only reliable approach is a documented recall check before purchase, a targeted frame inspection protocol on used vehicles in Salt Belt states, and the ability to distinguish between the cosmetic rust that every northeastern vehicle carries and the structural rot that develops inside a compromised weld joint until the joint fails its speed. Do you own one of the 4 affected platforms? Check your VIN today, get under the rear of the vehicle, and report what you find at those control arm mounting points in the comments. Clean and coated, or peeling and scaling. The real-world inspection data from owners builds faster in these comments than any recall letter moves through the mail. Next week, the complete salt belt pre-purchase inspection protocol for any truck or SUV that is operated in the 23 states named in this recall. Subscribe so you do not miss it.